this year's class, we still obviously have to have an opinion on them. We did beforehand. We do now. That's why we decided to go ahead and re-rank the rookie draft class. So the way I did it was this. I went back through and I looked through our Dynasty Rewind ADP. This was the last ADP that we had. I believe it was either late May, early June is when we stopped doing rookie drafts. We had a draft running almost every night for probably, I'd say, a solid month.
Probably all of May. I
Yeah.
think we started kind of, going down to once or twice a week in June. I think we were pretty much done by July.
So the way I quantified this was, who got drafted, where they got drafted. So Nate, let's start it off with probably one of the most confusing positions for me in fantasy football, and that's the quarterback position. I'm going to give you the top 5 quarterbacks that were drafted in their final Dynasty Round ADP. And if you want to get in on that, patreon.com/Dynasty Round. We're giving you a week for free. Come check it out. Check out the chat and everything, and tell us what you think. So the quarterbacks were as followed. The 101 was Caleb Williams. The 104 was Jaden Daniels. The 105 was Drake May. The 107 was J.J. McCarthy. And the 201 was Bo Nix. Now, I kept 2 quarterbacks out of this list because, 205, Michael Penix Jr. hasn't really played. I think he had a couple snaps here and there. And the 503 was Spencer Rattler. He played. I'm using played in quotes, but we know how that goes. So, Nate, why don't you go ahead and re-rank that for us?
Yeah, so how I would have my top 5, Mike, at this point, and I'm excited to say this. At number 1, I have Bo Nix.
I'm not surprised.
I have Bo Nix, and I love, number 2, I have Jaden Daniels, and I think it's really an argument between the two of them at this point. And up until the last couple of weeks, it was easily Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
I've loved Bo Nix for quite a long time, but I wasn't putting Bo Nix ahead of Jaden Daniels. But we've seen this continuous cycle of Cliff Kingsbury, where he always does great for the first half of the season and then does terrible the second half of the season. We're seeing it right now with the Commanders, and Jaden Daniels is unfortunately a victim of this. Now, I don't think that Jaden Daniels is, as bad as it looks right now. I don't know if he's necessarily as good as it looked originally, but I do think that he is a very, very good quarterback who can do it on the ground, do it through the air. They need to get him another wide receiver outside of Terry McLaurin. I know that Noah Brown has been the number 1 wide receiver there over the past couple of weeks. But Bo Nix, what he's done with Sean Payton and just his abilities and how that works with Sean Payton. And we're hearing not just from Sean Payton himself talk about how he reminds him of Drew Brees, but we're hearing this from other players, players who play with Drew Brees, and how now they're watching Bo Nix and the improvement that he's already made throughout this season. He is throwing across the middle of the field like a veteran quarterback. And Bo Nix is basically a veteran quarterback. He started for 5 years in college, so he came into the NFL with a ton of experience. Bo Nix actually, I believe, has the most games started of any player at the quarterback position in NCAA history. So this guy came into the league with a ton of experience, and we're seeing it, as he improves this year. Right now, if the things that have happened over the last 4 weeks continue for the next 4 or 5 weeks as we end this season, I think Bo Nix is going to be the offensive rookie of the year. If it isn't Brock Bowers, of course. Depending on where I am, I could go either way, but if I'm going to go I have to rank one over the other, I'm putting it on Bo Nix right now. What he's doing out there right now is incredible, especially with the Broncos team that, I didn't think was very good coming into this season. And outside of Cortland Sutton, I don't know what their wide receivers are really doing. Devon Vele over there is looking pretty decent. But let me get past the first 2 here. At 3, I have Caleb Williams. At 4, I have Drake May. And then, of course, at 5th, I have J.J. McCarthy. I still have J.J. McCarthy over Michael Penix Jr. Caleb Williams, Drake May. I could also see an argument for flipping them, but I think they're the next 2. I think this is very set with Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels at the top, and then Williams and May in 3rd and 4th. I love both their potential. I think they're both going to be great quarterbacks in the future, but they just haven't been able to perform quite to the level of these other 2 guys so far.
I still have Jaden Daniels, number 1. I was a little low on him coming into the season, and look, got to eat some crow here. Jaden Daniels has proven to me that, supposedly he's been battling a rib injury or a wrist or hand injury, something like that. But still, he keeps his team in every game. And good on you, Commanders, for finally getting your team a quarterback that can be relevant for a long time. As an Eagles fan, I'm looking forward to watching the Eagles and the Commanders play for years to come with Jaden Daniels as a quarterback because, they've just had a turnstile down there and it hasn't worked out. So good on them. I have Bo Nix second. And man, Bo Nix, people, I don't know why people hated him so much. The guy threw for 15,000 yards in college, 113 touchdowns, and only 26 interceptions. In 5 years as a starter, less than 30 interceptions. His highest was 7 interceptions, and he did that twice. 2 years, Nate, he only had 3 interceptions. Sorry, this is 3, not this. Sorry if you're watching. But after that, I have Caleb Williams showing some promise, some ups, some downs. He's coming back up again. I like what Chicago is putting together. Number 4, I have Drake May. Drake May is a guy I think when they get him some better help at the wide receiver position,
Yeah.
he's going to be really good. And I understand that, people say a good quarterback elevates the players around him. You can only elevate certain things so far. We've
Especially
seen
when you're a young quarterback, you need the help.
exactly. And then 5, I have JJ McCarthy over Michael Penix as well. Um, I'm not a Michael Penix guy, and I think JJ McCarthy still has a clear path to being relevant sooner than Michael Penix does, barring another Kirk Cousins injury. Let's get to the keep trade cut consensus. 1 is Jane Daniels. Number 2 is Drake May. Number 3 is Bo Nix. Number 4 is Caleb Williams. And number 5 is JJ McCarthy.
So, Mike, what this is telling us is that we are higher on Knicks than consensus, and we're a little bit lower on Drake May than consensus. Though, honestly, I don't feel like I'm low on Drake May. I love Drake May. This is really good quarterback class.
Yeah, this just happened to be a very good quarterback class, which, if you can buy any of these guys cheaply now, that's a good idea. I don't think as of right now, this recording, November 26th, I don't think the next 2 quarterback classes are going to be anything special. So
Not a lot coming this year that I'm excited about, to be honest.
yeah, let's go to the running backs. The 110 in our ADP was Jonathan Brooks. 203 was Trey Benson. 211, Jalen Wright. Now, this has a little bit more in it. We're only going to rank 5, but I pointed out some notable names. 212, Blake Corum. 301, Marshawn Lloyd. Hasn't done much this year. He's been injured. 407, Kamani Vidal. Give me some more Kamani. 409, Ray Davis. 410 is the big one, Bucky Irving. 411, Braylon Allen. 501, Audric Estime. And 506, Tyrone Tracy. So the 410, the 501, and the 506. This is why I always preach late round draft picks matter. So, Nate, why don't you kick it off and re-rank the top 5 for me?
So at number 1, I got Bucky Irving. No rookie running back is playing quite to the level that Bucky Irving is playing to right now. He is currently he's second behind Tyrone Tracy in yards among the rookies, but he is leading them in touchdowns with 5. So he is arguably the most productive rookie running back so far. Also, we love the advanced stats, Mike, like yards after contact per attempt, and he is number 1 in that as well. So he's doing a little bit of everything. Just because his athletic measurements didn't come in great, did not diminish his football playing ability. So that was a good steal there. Now he's at the number 1 spot. All right, and then number 2, I got Jonathan Brooks. Maybe this is a little high. We haven't seen anything from him yet, and Shuba got the 3-year deal. But I can't push him too far down until we see something. Like, I need to see him be bad or see him be good or see him just be in the middle. But I don't want to drop him too low before I actually get to see what he can do. At number 3, I got Tyrone Tracy. I've never been the biggest fan of him, but he's being productive right now. And the Giants have a lot of holes. I don't think they need to bring in a running back next year, so he has some good, decent dynasty value to him right now. At number 4, I got Trey Benson, who hasn't had a lot of opportunities so far, but we know James Conner is going to dominate those opportunities while he's there. But how much longer is he there? He is continuing to get older, even though he's still productive. And then number 5, Braylon Allen, who I think with more opportunity could jump up this list because he was really good at the beginning of the season when he did have opportunities. The Jets as a whole have kind of just been a dumpster fire, so we haven't really got to see more Braylon Allen since. But Brees Hall is only there 1 more year after this, so I think Braylon Allen's going to have opportunities moving forward.
I also have Bucky Irving, number 1. Didn't like the landing spot, didn't like the draft capital, but talk about a guy who's just come in and has made the most out of everything. Rashad White, great season last year. Todd Bowles, give him credit for riding the hot hand and finding kind of a rotation that just really is working for the Buccaneers right now.
Everyone's productive there right now. I mean, Rashad White obviously has kind of had his job taken away a little bit, but he's still scoring double-digit points every week.
He is. I mean, if he's like the running back 2 on your team right now and you're stacked at wide receiver, you're doing okay.
Yeah.
But still, moving on, I got Trey Benson over Jonathan Brooks. I'm just a really big Trey Benson fan. This is nothing against Jonathan Brooks. I want to see a little bit more. Only had a few carries in this last game. But then I do have Jonathan Brooks at number 3 over number 4, Tyrone Tracy. I think Jonathan Brooks has a higher ceiling overall than Tyrone Tracy and a higher long-term ceiling as well, and also a safer long-term floor. And then at number 5, I have Braylon Allen. You hit the nail on the head. Breece Hall is still there, but if you remember a while back, I laid out a scenario. Hey, maybe the Jets move on from Breece Hall. Braylon Allen's there. He's under a rookie deal. He's only 20 years old, too. So
Yeah.
Braylon Allen is a guy. He's got an NFL future, be it with the Jets or not. He's going to be around for a little bit. Let's look at the keep trade consensus right now. Lining up pretty good with what you said, Nate.
Yeah.
It's 1 through 5, Bucky Irving, Jonathan Brooks, Tyrone Tracy, Trey Benson, and then Braylon Allen.
Yeah, and there's still other players. We didn't talk about Jalen Wright, who looked good when he had some opportunities this year. And hey, he's probably going to have a lot of opportunities next year behind Achane because I don't expect most of it to be there much longer.
Right.
Ray Davis has been really good in his opportunities he's gotten. He's done some damage down the field through the air as well. Blake Corum, he's got a couple of opportunities, and they don't seem to trust him just yet, but he's gotten some opportunities. But I'm actually really excited about Marshawn Lloyd once he actually gets on the field. He was one of my favorite players coming out of the draft. Haven't got to see him so far, unfortunately, but I'm still holding out hope with Lloyd.
Let's get to the position we love to build around. It's the wide receiver position. So there's a bunch here as well. We got at the 102, Marvin Harrison Jr., 103, Malik Neighbors, 106, Rome Odunze, 109, Brian Thomas Jr., 111, Ladd McConkey, everyone's favorite draft pick this year, it felt, 112, Xavier Worthy, 202, Keon Coleman, 204, Ricky Pearsall, 206, A.D. Mitchell, and then all the way to 208, Xavier Legette. Nate, go ahead and re-rank them for me.
Yeah, so my top 5 here would be Malik Neighbors, number 1. And number 2, I got Marvin Harrison Jr. Number 3, Rome Odunze. Number 4, Brian Thomas Jr. And then number 5, Ladd McConkey.
All right. I'm actually surprised that Ladd McConkey was that low for you, Nate. You were a big fan. Let's do mine. Malik Neighbors, number 1. Then number 2, I have Marvin Harrison Jr. Number 3, I have Ladd McConkey. Ladd is his middle name, by the way. His first name is Andrew, so Ladd's a fraud. Number 4, I have Brian Thomas Jr. And then number 5, I have Rome Odunze. Excited to watch him and Caleb Williams grow together. That's going to be a really interesting duo for a long time, I think.
I agree.
Yeah. Let's go to the consensus now, and it looks like it's differing a little bit from what we have. Number 1, keep trade cut consensus, Malik Neighbors. Number 2, Marvin Harrison Jr. Number 3, then Brian Thomas Jr. Number 4 is Ladd McConkey, and number 5 is Rome Odunze.
Yeah, so just to defend myself with my 5th ranking of Ladd McConkey.
It's just because I know you loved him so much.
I do.
I expected him to be like 3rd on the list.
I still love Ladd McConkey, but so this is a dynasty ranking, not rest of the season rankings, not how far they performed this well. I'm trying to look long term here. And as much as I love Ladd McConkey, and as well as he's done, he's like top 3 in just about every single category among rookie wide receivers right now. The Chargers need to bring in another wide receiver. If you watch that game Monday Night Football, you saw Quentin Johnston is not going to be able to do anything really for this team moving forward.
It's a shame.
Can't even catch the ball when it's right on him and there's no one around him in a big moment of the game. So they need another wide receiver. And on the next podcast we're going to do, where we do trade values, I'm going to talk about T. Higgins. And I'm going to talk about how T. Higgins is going somewhere and the Chargers got a lot of cap room. I don't know if it's going to be him or somebody else, but it's Jim Harbaugh, so he might not even bring in another wide receiver. Who knows? But I do feel like they need someone to play with Ladd McConkey. And then you combine that with the fact that they're not a high volume passing offense. It's the lowest Justin Herbert's thrown so far in his entire career. And I just wonder if the volume is there for Ladd McConkey to take the next step after this season to be up where I think that Rome Odunze could be, when Keenan Allen's not there and Caleb is actually, playing under a good coaching staff. Is he going to have the volume that Brian Thomas is going to have once that coaching staff is renewed and Trevor Lawrence is healthy? I mean, we saw Brian Thomas at the beginning of the season. If he can do that next year with a healthy offense, he's going to be better than Ladd McConkey, as much as I love Ladd. So, having to look forward, it's a testament to Ladd that he's still here at 5. He's better than everyone that was drafted after him. for sure. And you could argue that he's higher than 5. You had him higher than 5. You have him 3. So I understand it looks a little low for me, but I love all 5 of these guys a lot, and they're all easily top 25 wide receivers for Dynasty and me.
For me, the reason I actually like Brian Thomas Jr. better than Lad McConkey, but the reason I ranked McConkey higher, long-term quarterback stability. Trevor Lawrence, look, he's been just really inconsistent. Now he's hurt. They're going to have a coaching change. They're not going to have that this offseason in Los Angeles. So stability, something that you look forward to, be it at the quarterback or coaching position. So that's just kind of the reason that I have him there. Maybe Brian Thomas Jr., he's in an offensive system that doesn't try to get him the ball as much. We don't know. Christian Kirk's going to be coming back. Gabe Davis will be coming back as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens down there. There's a possibility, too, that even though the Chargers do not have the highest volume, maybe McConkey's the wide receiver 1 next year. He's making a case to be the Chargers wide receiver 1 right now. All right, Nate, let's get to my favorite and the greatest position in fantasy football. That's the tight end position. So let's kick it off at the 108. We got Brock Bowers, 3, and then we had a whole round pretty much go by. 302, Ben Sinnott. 305, Jatavian Sanders. The 504, so we're skipping another almost 2 full rounds. Theo Johnson, and then 509, Eric All. A couple notable people. We got Dallin Hoker here at the 306. Tip Ryman. People were talking about him for a little bit at the 405. I just kind of excluded some guys that really haven't done much here. Cade Stover at the 603. Tanner McLaughlin, a Bob Van Duzer favorite at the 608. And then Jared Wiley, who I was pretty high on at the 610. I know drafts normally don't go to 6 rounds, but we just had so many players and so many drafts that's why ADP got pushed into the 6th round. So, Nate, why don't you go ahead and give me your tight end re-ranking?
Yeah, number 1, Brock Bowers. And I hope you drafted him because all the other tight ends, haven't been too much. It wasn't really a tight end depth class, but tight end at the top was insane. Brock Bowers, mentioned earlier, I think Bo Nix has a really good shot at the Rookie of the Year. It probably should be Brock Bowers, honestly, even though he's not a quarterback. He's just that good. At number 2, I got Theo Johnson, apparently. I don't even know if I remember writing Theo Johnson there. I thought I had Jatavian Sanders, but I put Jatavian Sanders at 3 because of the recent injury. He had a injury this past week. Mike, I don't know if you saw this, but he landed on his head. So it was a spine injury. He had to go to the hospital. They say he's going to be fine. I don't know what his timeline looks like, but until I hear more about that, I did drop him to 3 because Theo Johnson has been really impressive so far this year as a rookie, getting 80+% of the snaps week 1 and getting some production since then. I like what all 3 of those guys have done. And then you get into the 4 and the 5 here. These guys haven't done much, but we like them coming out of college and they're still in good situations. At 4, I got Ben Sinnott, who's stuck behind Zach Ertz. And as we discussed last week, there's a lot of tight ends who've been stuck behind Zach Ertz. Yeah. And at number 5, Cade Stover scored a touchdown this week. I believe he had 3 receptions as well. I liked Cade Stover coming out of Ohio State. Maybe Dalton Schultz is not the guy there for the future.
Possible.
Even though they have him signed for a couple of years. I like Cade Stover. I don't think he's going to make an immediate impact anytime soon, but a good taxi stash that I have on a couple teams.
Yeah, he'd be a really good stash, to be all honest with you. I'm looking up right now to see what Dalton Schultz's contract is. I mean, the problem is he's going to kind of have to be there for a little bit. If they cut him before June 1st next year, they're going to have a $16 million cap hit.
Yeah, I think if Stover makes an impact, it's probably year 3 or 4. So,
they have an easier out after next season with Dalton Schultz. His usage has just been weird, and we know he's better than what he's been getting used as. So let's talk about my re-rankings. I have Brock Bowers number 1. That one's pretty cut and dry there. Number 2, I do have Jatavian Sanders. He's a guy for me. I just still think he has a higher ceiling than Theo Johnson does, although Theo Johnson, I think, is slightly more athletic. Jatavian Sanders just a little bit more physical with the ball in his hands, really good blocker as well, and separation for a tight end and the man that
knows how to get open.
He really does. And then Ben Sinnott and Cade Stover. I think Ben Sinnott just athletically gives you a better ceiling than Cade Stover does, because Cade Stover is kind of like a poor man's Dalton Schultz as of right now, if you think about it.
Yeah, I think Ben Sinnott can make an impact next year.
I think
they move on from Zach Ertz.
If they move on from Zach Ertz.
He's on a 1-year deal, so they have to re-sign him if they want to bring him back, which they could. They absolutely could.
Let's go to consensus now. Number 1, Brock Bowers. Number 2, Jatavian Sanders. Number 3, Ben Sinnott. Number 4, Theo Johnson. And number 5, Eric All, who is on IR. So they eliminated Cade Stover from their list.
Yeah, it's we might be a bit more up with the times, because Cade Stover just had a good week this past week. But I do like Eric All, and if he wasn't injured, he would probably be 3 or 4 for me in these rankings. But for him to have the ACL injury again,
Yeah,
I think this is what is his 3rd time having an ACL injury.
possibly.
It's just not great, not great vibes for the knees.